Hey, this is Vanner, and you're listening to Finding Frequency. A cold day in Poland. Cold, it's chilly. I think we started off with 0. Now, my Canadian friends will laugh at me when I say it's cold, but it has been a bit chilly. I can feel it in my bones. It's also nice and dark. We went through daylight savings time, so we're an hour behind South Africa. That's how I keep track of the fact that I'm in daylight savings time now. Usually we are in sync. Now we are out of sync. Something else that's a little bit out of sync is the political situation and a lot of kind of social situations here in Poland. I haven't really spoken a lot about what's going on in my lovely country at the moment. Things that are, and I say lovely country because I really do love Poland. And it's been a home to me. It is my home. And, because I was so focused on a lot of personal stuff. And once again, like the life that Marta and I am living at the moment is also kind of very closed. The family that we have in our immediate surroundings are relatively conservative folks, not really kind of pulse of the news kind of people, where I'm constantly checking CNN and BBC and all kind of news channels that I can find. That is less of a problem for my in-laws and some of the immediate friends and family. And this is not a criticism, it's just the way it is. There's a lot of trust in the government. It is just the way it is. However, something that has been top of mind for us, and it's weird because I feel a bit guilty too, because Marta and I are always kind of a little bit behind the curve when it comes to these situations, is that there's two kind of key topics that are currently ongoing here in Poland. And they are tragic and a little bit unsettling when you start thinking about it. And the reason I'm also adding it here, because it does align with my extraordinary. Because as I was sitting here today, working away, doing calculations and trying to figure things out, I open the door and I see Marta actually picking a tear away, because some of the things that are currently happening on our border and here in our society is heart-wrenching. So to kind of just document what is going on at the moment. So I've been talking about a lot of kind of human rights aspects here in Poland that has been kind of challenged. The Constitutional Court has changed slightly. It's become more political, and we've seen this happening a little bit, in certain other countries as well. And it's to such an extent that it's now causing friction between Poland and the European Union. But fundamentally, where it all started, for me anyway, is where they were kind of trying to get rid of all the abortion laws out there. Now, I have a strong point of view on that, is that I believe that everybody should have a freedom of choice. I always believe that less government is better. I feel we should all be raised in such a way that we make our own decisions. And especially as a male, I should not be making decisions for someone else, especially if I can't empathize with their situation, with the things that happen to their bodies. Who am I to make that decision? Now, what happened recently is that, and in fact, it is my understanding that what happened recently didn't happen so recently, because it takes time for these stories to actually come through, is that a young lady, I think she's around 32, went to hospital. There was complications around her pregnancy. And because the doctors were hesitant to act, she ended up dying in hospital. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that this could have been prevented. In one way, you could see it as negligence from doctors, and that has yet to be proved because it's just a hearsay at the moment. The other side of it is that it might be doctors fearing to act. And I've seen this in other countries when legislation starts kicking in, people are fearful of overstepping their bounds. And I think, and this is where I sympathize or empathize with doctors, it's very hard to navigate human life and then later on being held responsible for that human life. Now, that being said, the issue is now on the table again. because this is something that could have been avoided. People have taken to the streets, especially last weekend, to talk about this, to express their points of view and express the fact that not another person. We will see how this plays out. At the moment, it feels a little bit like the ruling party in Poland is kind of thumbing their nose at the European Union, so there's friction. But then that's not the only kind of strategy playing itself out. And this is the one that's kind of hit Marta quite closely at the moment, and that's the one with the refugees. Now, Belarus is a neighbor of Poland, and Belarus is a country that has leadership, because it's not the people, it's the leadership in place there at the moment that are kind of a little bit aggressive towards change. They want to keep the status quo. In fact, the president there is seen as the longest reigning or last living European dictator that is still left. Lukashenko, I think is his name. And there was an election. People stated that that election wasn't free and fair. People got booted out of the country. People are getting slapped around for expressing the fact that they're not happy. And when I say people, Belarusian people. Of course, there's been sanctions from the European Union. Now, what has since happened is that the leadership in Belarus, and that is kind of what has been claimed, is actually allowing refugees to enter Belarus and then through Belarus enter the European Union. So Lithuania, I think Latvia, I might be messing this one up, but then also Poland, which borders Belarus, they are allowing refugees to go through Belarus into these countries to enter the European Union. Thus, everybody's jumping around trying to stop this from happening, because they don't want, of course, people just crossing the border haphazardly. A lot of these folks are coming from all over the world, Syria, Libya, I think even from some of the African countries, just trying to find a new way of life. Unfortunately, they are doing this journey now when winter is starting to kick in. And trust me, you do not want to sleep in a forest in Poland at this time of year. And also, as we've seen in the United States on the Mexican border, people are starting to really group around things. On the one side of the fence, you have the Polish soldiers blocking entrance into Poland. And then when these poor refugees turn around and want to enter back into Belarus, they are finding Belarusian soldiers forcing them back again. So they are stuck in no man's land. At the end of the day, these are human beings sitting in a forest. And a lot of children there, women, men, not too well dressed to cope with winter. And trust me, you don't want to be sleeping in a tent this time of year. So it's unsettling. It's also, you feel powerless because you don't know how to support and how to get involved. Marta's looking into it. But it's heart-wrenching because you may imagine someone like Francie having to sleep in a forest somewhere. I don't want to picture that. For me, it's also strange to think about it because I am myself a foreigner. I am here legally, and I'm doing air quotes at the moment, but I am a foreigner at the end of the day. And I'm here hoping to add value. And I think a lot of folks in the forest there want to do the same. Now, the other thing I would say, though, and I like to always think about my old country, South Africa, and thinking about things there. Now, this is a bold statement I'm going to make, and a lot of my fellow South Africans would probably not agree with me. But when I sit down here in my little office and I think about South Africa and my experience there, South Africa had a bit of a different spin. And I know I, for one, and a lot of my friends and family didn't like that because they kind of threw the borders open. They welcomed everybody. And of course, even locally, a lot of things happened that were kind of xenophobic. It's been well publicized. But then today, when I was thinking about what was happening here in Poland on the border, and then thinking about South Africa, I asked myself this question. I wonder who made more of a contribution to South Africa on the one hand, and who took more from South Africa on the other hand. And what I'm trying to say is that if I think about corruption, theft, and breaking down of systems within South Africa, I cannot blame refugees or foreigners. When I think about people who have added to the economy in South Africa, I have very close friends that I've worked with while in South Africa from Zimbabwe and all kinds of other countries that have brought such a rich experience. And I'm still grateful to have met them and still call some of them my friends. So I really wonder who's really damaging the economy. Who's really a threat to security? Is it really the refugees and foreigners? Or perhaps do we need to look at some of the folks that are currently swinging the javel and making laws in our countries and making decisions for us? Now, of course, I know that we can't just go haphazardly, just letting people in through borders. There needs to be some control, and we all want to try and add to our society and build up and make it stable. But hell, no one should be freezing in a forest during the course of the evening. So, yeah, it's a tough one today because this is definitely something that Martin and I have been speaking about a lot during the course of the day, and it sits in the back of the mind continuously. I think also the fact that we are not really sure what's going on there because it's kind of locked down. And I don't know who's being kept accountable or who's going to be held accountable for what's going on there, because someone needs to be held accountable in both cases. Lots of heavy stuff today, but it's important.